Hey guys, I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. And you all did really good on your research clubs and those things. We will be going over a little bit more on what you can do with the research club. But for now, we are focusing. We're moving on our writing into um, adapting fairy tales. Most of you know what fairy tales are. You have heard them your whole life. And we're talking about like Little Red Riding Hood, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Those are fairy tales, things that you were read to even before you knew how to read or even before you could pick up a book. So we're going to be focusing on that, and that's our writing unit. I know as you're thinking, well, we're fairy tales, you read those, but yes, you do read those, and you're going to be adapting them, which means you're going to be changing them up a little bit and or writing your own fairy tales later. But for now, we're kind of getting into that mode of what fairy tales are. So whenever I read a fairy tale, and these are any of the ones that like the Goldilocks that we see on the screen, you those before they were ever written, they were told and retold by a bunch of different people, and more than likely they've got things added to them, and then they've been retold and passed down from one person to another, and then they got wrote down. And so that's how we ended up having a lot of these fairy tales. So here in a little bit, we'll talk about kind of adapting them. But we're going to look at this is going to be the one that we're going to focus on as a class. You're going to have a couple to choose from in just a little bit. And this is just the Goldilocks that you probably know. All right. And these are an epic. Okay. So when you get to epic, you should be able to go into Goldilocks and read these books. And so we're just going to go over a little bit on the Goldilocks. And you can go to Epic, type in whatever of the books that you're looking for. I typed in Goldilocks. And then this one, it does say it also in Spanish, but we're worrying about the English version. Okay. I'll read a little bit to you. Once there were three bears who lived in a house deep in the woods. The great big bear was Papa Bear, the middle sized bear was Mama Bear, and the smallest bear was Baby Bear. Every morning, the bears ate breakfast together. They each had their own bowl of porridge. The great big bowl was for Papa Bear, the middle sized bowl was for Mama Bear, and the little bowl was for Baby Bear. After breakfast, the bears rested in the living room. They each had their own chair. The great big chair was for Papa Bear, the middle chair was for Mama Bear, and the little chair was for Baby Bear. In the evening, the bears went upstairs to their cozy bedroom. They each had their own bed. The great big bed was for Papa Bear, the middle sized bed was for Mama Bear, and the little bed was for Baby Bear. One morning, the bears went for a walk. While they let their hot porridge cool, while they were gone, a little girl named Goldilocks came upon their house. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. Goldilocks went inside. She saw three bowls of porridge on the table. She ate a spoonful from the great big bowl. The porridge was too hot. Next, she ate a spoonful from the middle-sized bowl. The porridge was too cold. Then Goldilocks ate from the smallest bowl. The porridge was just right. She ate until the porridge was gone. Goldilocks wanted to rest in the living room. She saw three chairs. First, Goldilocks sat in the great big chair. It was too hard. Next, Goldilocks sat in the middle chair, and it was too soft. Then Goldilocks sat in the smallest chair. It was just right, but she was too heavy, and the little chair broke. Okay, so that's just part of the Goldilocks. There's more to read. But this one, when I just typed in, you can see Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I even got some books that look like they've already been adapted. Like, look at this one right here that came up next, Brownylocks and the Three Bowls of Cornflakes. So we can read that and we can see a little bit about how this book was adapted a little different than Goldilocks was. So we can start on this one. Mom put out three bowls of cornflakes. So that's different. It's not porridge. And then let's go for a walk before breakfast, she said. Brownylocks, the bear, was out walking too. She smelled the cornflakes. Tasty, she thought, climbing in. And then very much, it looks like they have chairs too that were very similar to the Goldilocks. Goldilocks sat on Dad's chair. Too hard, she growled. She tried Mom's chair. Too soft, she moaned. She went over to Sam's chair. Just right, she thought, reaching for Sam's cornflakes. But crash! Brownylocks was too heavy and Sam's chair snapped. Brownylocks felt sleepy. She tried the biggest bed. Too hard, she grunted. She tried the next bed. Too bouncy, she cried. Then she tried the smallest bed. Just right, she said, and she climbed on the bed and fell fast asleep. Okay, so we can see a few things that were very similar to the Goldilocks and the Three Bears and to Brownylocks and the Three Bowls of Cornflakes. Okay, so what do I make sure you guys do every time is have something like we had in our writer's workshop. We had our spirals where we took notes and we jotted our notes and everything there. You can either use that, or if you want to and you're comfortable, you can get a Google Doc, make sure you share it with me. That way I can see what you've written. And at some point you are going to write this down on a Google Doc and turn it in. I'll have that for you. But for now, for your notes, you can either, if you feel more comfortable writing it with a pen and paper or a pencil and paper, and then, or on your Google Doc, but you need to make sure you keep this with you because you will be writing notes. You will be making changes or adaptations in your story, okay? So when you get that your story, and you're going to have a couple to choose from, you're going to kind of think about what would you want to change in your story. So what does the author seem to be trying to do when you change your story? Are you going to kind of change it to from somebody else's adaptation, and is that going to help you make your own? From like this one was Goldilocks, and then the Brownylocks. So that author, they did change that up a bit. They had a bear instead of a little girl come in, and then but some of the other things were very similar. Okay, so what does why did the author choose to adapt certain things, and why did they choose to not do things? So real quick, if you need a pause, what was one big change that the author made from Goldilocks and the Three Bears to Brownylocks and the Three Bowls? So think about it. If you need to pause for a second, pause. Okay, so one big thing was it went from a girl, Goldilocks, to a bear named Brownylocks. So that was one thing that the author chose to do. And I'm wondering why. I wonder why he chose to do that instead of a girl to a bear. She could have done, obviously Goldilocks is there. Maybe the author could have made it into something else. So think about that. So I wonder why the author chose to do that instead of something else. Also, there was something very similar from the Three Bears to the three bowls of cornflakes. It was porridge, which is like oatmeal kind of, and then it went to cornflakes. So they did both go for a walk. They went for a walk to let the porridge cool, and then in the cornflakes they just went for a walk, and then the bear came in. So think about that as you. Because you're going to have a choice here in just a minute of which ones that you want to do. You're going to be able to choose through either, let's see, Three Billy Goats Gruff. So you can type that in and you'll get several books, the Three Billy Goats Gruff. Or you also can choose Little Red Riding Hood. So these both will be in your epic when you choose. So if you type in Little Red Riding Hood, you'll get both of those to look through. And most of you might not know the Three Billy Goats Gruff, but most of you know Little Red Riding Hood. So think about which one you want to do. And then think about something in that story, Little Red Riding Hood, the Three Billy Goats Gruff, that you might want to change. And think about things that you might want to keep the same. All right. So a good question is, what do you, the author, want to be trying to say? Are you going to say something a little different, or are you going to change things in there and maybe kind of create a look? Because usually you learn a lesson in fairy tales. Not always, but usually there's a lesson to be learned. Or are you going to go with the same lesson that the author did in the original, or are you going to try something a little different and come up with your own variation, your own adaptation of the fairy tale? So that's what you're going to be charged with, is to think about which one of those two are you going to um, yeah, what are you going to try to do? Because you're going to be thinking about this as you later on down the road on our journey in our fairy tale adaptations. You're going to be kind of coming up with a much elaborate. But right now, you're thinking about what would you want to change, kind of like we did in the Goldilocks. What are you going to change? How do you want it to? If you can go from like a maybe Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you can change it to a boy. That's an easy one to do. Is change the from a boy to a girl to a boy. In this case, the Goldilocks went from a girl to a bear. So think about that. What you want to change, what do you want to keep the same, and start planning that out, because you're going to be writing a little bit more. So think about those things as um, between. I'll write it down. It'll be on my notes. Three Billy Goats Gruff, or the or Little Red Riding Hood. Okay. If you have questions, always feel free to ask.